Hey, Casey.
Yo.
I'm excited about today's list.
Dude, me too.
A little too excited. The top 13 Zelda games of all time.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to BigChunky. Today we are going to go over my top 13 Zelda games. As everybody probably knows, I'm a big Zelda fan. It's my pride and joy. It's your fault.
You're my pride and joy.
Whoa!
Right?
I don't know.
Firstborns are supposed to be pride and joy. I mean, sometimes it's
a
joy.
Yeah, it might be a mistake. But
sometimes I have pride, and today's one of those days.
yes, I know. So today we're going to go over my top 13 Zelda games. We're going to go over... caveat, I haven't beaten a couple of these games, but I'll talk about why. Let's go ahead and start out with number 13. We have a remake, is the only version that I have. Link's Awakening. So Link's Awakening is a game that I never really had as a child, but it was the first handheld Zelda game. Well, no, I lied. There's a Game & Watch, but there was the first console handheld Game Boy Zelda game. So it's a full-fledged Zelda game on the Game Boy. It was a marvel back in the day. Black and white, though, which is odd, until they remade it. But they did a full, complete, super remake. This is the definitive edition.
Original Game Boy?
For the Switch. Original Game Boy.
So not black and white, black and whatever god-awful color the screen was?
Yeah, it was like, mucus green. It was awful.
Black and snot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was terrible.
All right, number 13,
That's number 13, Link's Awakening.
You need to get the
I beat
original.
it on the channel. I might have it somewhere, but either way. Number 12, we're going to go... I'm sorry. Number 12 is a game I don't have. It's the only game I don't have because I know I do have it, but I don't know where it is. But it's Phantom Hourglass. It is the sequel to Wind Waker, the very first sequel to the Wind Waker, the first Zelda game on Nintendo DS. And I have pretty fond memories of that in GameStop, trying to figure out the controls because I didn't know that it was a touchscreen game. So I tried to control it with the buttons, and it just wasn't working. So I got frustrated. But I played the game.
So some people
hated
it, right?
Some people didn't really like it because you had to go back to one area of the game multiple times and complete stuff that you've already done a bunch. But if you get over that little bit of tediousness, it's actually a pretty fun game for what it is, and a brand new control style, so that's always cool. Except for when you talk about number 11, Skyward Sword. So I have this game graded. It's pretty cool, but Skyward Sword is the first game that was developed specifically for the Wii, and it took advantage of the Wii Remote's Wii Motion Plus. So the thing that makes bowling super accurate in Wii Sports Resort also makes sword fighting super accurate in Zelda.
Put a little sword play, realistic sword play into the game.
Very realistic sword
Impressive.
play. I mean, sort of, kind of.
I've never played this one.
No, and a lot of people didn't really like it because first, it's super linear. There's not a whole lot of freedom. And two, the controls are they either don't work at all or they like kind of work. Okay. So yeah, it's just a lot harder to control that game than just to hit the buttons on normal Zelda games.
I think you told me at some point this was chronologically the first game in the series.
Absolutely.
If you care about that kind of thing.
Yeah. If you care about the lore of Zelda, like the true nerds that you are, this is the very first Zelda game in the timeline. The very confusing to some people timeline.
Awesome.
It's the first game, tells the whole origin of Link and Zelda and Ganon, actually.
I love the grading.
Yeah, the grading's nice, and the art style for that game is really cool.
Near Mint Plus uncirculated.
Yep.
All
so
right.
Now we're going to crack the top 10 for a game that I don't really think that a whole lot of people actually... I know people played it, but I don't hear anybody say or give this game praise. Four Sword Adventures. So this is a game that I played all the time with my buddy Jacob. We played it as kids, and it's multiplayer. Rather than taking turns like on a single player game that we used to do, this was a game that we could actually play together, and it's Zelda, so it's great. So the first player controls, Green Link with the GameCube controller and uses the TV.
The only real Link.
Yeah, And then you can add up to 3 more players, and they can play using their Game Boy Advances. They can plug in their Game Boy Advance if you have the correct cable to the GameCube, and each can control a Link, and it's cool because you get a little screen on there, so you can go on your own little adventure while you complete the grand adventure. So it's really cool.
That sounds fun.
I like that game. It's fun. It's fun if you want to play a multiplayer Zelda game. It's probably the best one. So then we move on to number 9, and number 9 is it's his favorite.
It's not my favorite.
It's your favorite. Zelda 2. So Zelda 2, I have complete in box.
So there's 19 Zelda games.
There's 19 Zelda games.
So this is in the upper half.
Yeah,
It's not as high as it should be
I
because
didn't.
it's
Well, okay, I didn't
whatever.
list the games that I haven't played, and I haven't played most of the handheld games. And I know that a lot of those games are regarded as some of the best, but I haven't played them yet. They're definitely on the list of games to play. But
Come on, the Adventures of Link, dude.
yeah, Adventures of Link. It's just I love the game for the memories that we have when I was a kid, and just even a couple years ago, or that might have been last year, when you finally beat the game after 30 years of
Yeah.
trying. So you try to beat the game for 30 years, finally ended up doing it. So that was cool. That was a cool little moment.
It's a tough game.
Yeah, I have it saved on the NES Classic, so that is there for the rest of time. So that's cool. So that's the only reason that's number 8, because I can't physically play that game. Or I'm sorry, number 9. Number 8 is the game that came right before that, the very first Legend of Zelda. So I have the very first release of this on the Famicom Disk System. I'm pretty
That's
proud of
neat.
that. So it's pretty cool. I've beaten that game exactly 3 times, 100%ed it every time, and I have a sort of love. Now it needs more polish because it is an NES game and it didn't really tell you at all what to do. So you had to use a
No.
guide if you wanted to figure out at all where to go in this game.
Was the name Link anywhere to be found in this?
The game Link, or the name Link, I don't know. It might be in the manual, but I don't really know. I don't think so.
Impressive.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Can't stand
So-
that game. Can't stand it.
I like it. Yeah, each
I
to
don't
their
like
own.
the top down.
Yeah, I like the top down.
Can't
I like
deal with
top
it.
down games. You don't.
Nope.
I don't understand.
Can't deal with it.
Crazy.
I'll beat it one day, but I can't deal with it.
Yeah. But let's move on to number 7. So number 7 is a sequel. Very rare in the Zelda world to find sequels to games. I think there's only 3 that are direct sequels from games. 3 or 4. So this is one of them. It is A Link Between Worlds for the 3DS. So A Link Between Worlds is the sequel to A Link to the Past. And A Link to the Past is, one of those classic games that everybody says that you have to play because it's just
Or
it's
else.
a timeless classic, yeah. So that's the sequel to it. It essentially takes the entire game world, the map, everything, all the locations are pretty similar to A Link to the Past. It brings them into a new graphic fidelity. Wonderful game. It keeps the 2 worlds, the kind of a gameplay mechanic that started with A Link to the Past. It keeps that in there, just slightly different, cooler, in my opinion at least. So it's a great game. Everybody needs to play that game. It's if you like A Link to the Past. You might not like it because you don't like top-down Zelda games for some fucking reason. So now we're gonna go on to number 6, and this is a game that I don't think it aged the best, specifically because they were trying to go for realism,
Well,
and realism from the GameCube didn't age
yep.
super well. So it aged worse than other Zelda games. But this one is Twilight Princess. And I was one of the kids that played it on the Wii. Because apparently I like to play all the wrong versions of everything. So I don't think it's the wrong one. It's the one that I grew up with. I was totally fine with the little waggle controls rather than, it's not quite as precise. The precision isn't really as needed as it is in Skyward Sword. So you can get away with just doing a little waggle, but you can't do that in Skyward Sword. So it didn't really bother me. My 8-year-old self loved it. I got it for Christmas with the Wii. So I have
good
very
day.
fond memories of that game. Great game. I have my time that it took me to beat the game written down in my guidebook. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So now we're in the top 5. And the top 5, ooh man, it's fluid. It changes all the time.
Today's top 5.
Yeah, today's top 5. We're going to start out with another sequel, actually. Majora's Mask. Majora's Mask for the Nintendo 64 is the sequel to the groundbreaking Ocarina of Time, and I have the collector's edition version of it.
Ooh.
So it has a holographic label, it's gold cartridge. But of course, the story of Majora's Mask, in comparison to Ocarina of Time, is they didn't really have a whole lot of time to develop this game, so that kind of influenced the whole gameplay mechanic where you don't have a whole lot of time to get really anything done in the game, so you have to go back in time repeatedly and everything starts over. But you can complete things, and that's how you ended up finishing everything. So there's a lot of new gameplay things that haven't really been replicated in future Zelda games that were introduced in Majora's Mask, like the transformations and the time mechanic. And of course, the story is super dark, which is a rarity in the Zelda world, and dark Zelda stories are always cool.
This is one of the games that I will make a point to play at some point.
Yeah, you need
and
to. If you
beat.
like Ocarina of Time, you'll like that for similar reasons.
I've seen you play it, so the only memories I have of it are this moon with just the most frowny face.
It's
that a moon
not
needs to
frowny.
have.
It's more like
Oh, I don't know. It
gritting its teeth at
Yeah,
you
it looks
because
really
it's
mad.
angry.
It looks mad.
mad.
And listen, if the moon's mad at you, their problems are coming.
Yeah, bad. It's bad.
Problems are
when
coming.
the moon is mad.
Yeah.
Not cool. So let's move on to number 4, and here's where things kind of started to get pretty hard for me.
Yeah.
But I ended up going with Breath of the Wild. So Breath of the Wild, as of this video, is the most recent Zelda game that has come out. But Link's Awakening came after, but it was a remake. It's the most recent unique Zelda game, and this game took the Zelda formula and kind of threw it in the trash and made much more of a more open world, the opposite of Skyward Sword, where Skyward Sword is super linear. You just go through the story, and it's more of a narrative than Breath of the Wild. But Breath of the Wild has the freedom that really makes the game different. It makes the experience of playing the game different for every player.
So this is Red Dead Redemption, and
A lot of people compare it to Skyrim. So it's the Skyrim
Same.
version of Zelda. Yeah. So it takes a lot of the Zelda formula and kind of gets rid of it, including like all the traditional dungeons and a lot of the ways that you get weapons. Like you don't get an item at the end of dungeons anymore, but you have everything that you need from the get-go, and it just lets you play around with the physics, and it's crazy. So
love it.
I love this game. Yeah, the game it's great. It has flaws, of course. It's not a perfect game. No game is perfect except for one, but it has some flaws. But I hope that they fix it in the sequel that's coming out soon. So that's number 4. So number 3, move on to number 3, is a classic.
Wow.
A Link to the Past.
A Link to the Past.
A Link to the Past for the Super Nintendo. Now this game needs no introduction. It needs no further explanation, but it's nothing short of the most perfect. It's one of the most perfect Zelda games. I would say that I don't know what would need to be changed about this game.
Nothing.
Nothing at all needs to be changed about this game. It doesn't need a remake because of some kind of flaw or some kind of restriction that the console had. It's the nearest to perfect Zelda game.
Introduced
For
time
Zelda
travel.
fans. It introduced a time travel mechanic that has been, or the multiple worlds
Reality,
mechanic.
yeah.
Yeah, the multiple reality mechanic that is found in, its sequel, A Link Between Worlds, and of course Ocarina of Time. So that's my number 3. This was kind of hard because I love this game to death.
No, I've seen lists.
challenging.
I've seen lists before,
Okay,
and I see a lot of people think this is the best one.
and that's totally
Ever.
fair. That's fair.
And on some days, you would agree that it's.
Some days I would
The
agree.
second
Yeah.
best
Some
one.
days I'm just like, man, you know what?
Is there ever a point
Link's
in time that
Awakening.
it jumps over your number 1?
Yeah.
Woo. Okay.
It's the 2D version of it.
Okay.
Yeah. So
One less D.
that might be a little hint. But the number 2 game in my list is. I love the game
A little surprising.
for what it is. I think a lot of people think it's a little surprising. But I love the game. Absolutely love it. I have a lot of childhood memories revolving around this game, especially playing it with you. And of course, just, playing it by myself, just wandering around. That game is Wind Waker. Now, Wind Waker got a lot of criticism when it first came out because it was cartoony. It moved away from any kind of, realistic style graphics, and realistic games were starting to become more and more of a thing with the GameCube, Xbox, and PS2 generation. So people were looking for more of a gritty and manly Zelda game, but what they
Manly
got,
Zelda.
yeah, exactly. So what they got
The story of a little boy.
was this, yeah, yeah, a little boy, saving the world. So I love this game. It aged much better than games like Twilight Princess, same console, but this aged much better, and that reflects definitely in the HD remake that they did for the Wii U. Because this game, it pops off the screen on the Wii U, and of course Twilight Princess HD does as well. But when you look at games comparatively that were made in that generation compared to that game, it's just you can tell it's a last generation game bumped up.
Yeah, it's the last game that I played extensively.
Yeah.
And I love the art.
Yeah,
I love it. And what I love about that game, and you're number one, is that it's just fun to play.
Yeah.
Like, it's just fun. Adventures of Link holds a place in my heart because that's what I grew up on.
Mm-hmm.
I would not consider it fun.
No,
at
it's
all.
tedious.
It's not even like a tedious. It's just like you don't have a minute where you're not under attack.
It's unfair. The game is unfair.
It's just like you don't have a minute to breathe and just enjoy a game because you're just constantly under attack. And again, it's a very unforgiving game.
Yeah.
This is like Ocarina of Time. You can run around. This one you can run around. You can float around. You can sail around.
This one you sail around, and there's actual real things to do. There's mini games.
Yeah, you're discovering islands.
Exactly.
I love it.
Yeah, I love that game.
So before you get to number one,
before I get to number one,
you have coined the term dishonorable mention.
I don't think I coined it. I think it's probably it's probably in one of those top 10 YouTube channels. But either way, this game is the only Zelda game that I've ever played and was thoroughly disappointed.
If there was a top 18 list we were doing, this wouldn't make the list.
No, 19. But no.
This is the last.
It's the very last, yeah.
It only makes your list
It's
of
at
Zelda
the bottom
games
of my
because
top
it has to.
19 Zelda games.
Okay.
Yeah. And that includes games I've never played.
Yes.
So, this is Triforce Heroes. Triforce Heroes is a pile of garbage that...
A pile of hot garbage.
Now, okay.
That you actively hate.
I actively hate it. But the gameplay is not... like it still feels like you're playing a Zelda game, of course. Like, Link controls like Link, and it feels like it's supposed to feel. But the major flaw is that it's a multiplayer game first, and not a single-player game that has multiplayer. So...
Ugh.
Right. So... All the puzzles and everything are designed around having 3 individual people playing with you, but you can also do it by yourself, which absolutely sucks because you have to control 3 links, or you control 1 link in carrying around statue versions of those other links because you need them to stand in certain places or whatever.
Oh my gosh. That's poorly designed.
To solve puzzles. It's bad. It's poorly designed. The story sucks.
That sounds terrible.
Triforce Heroes is terrible. Don't play it unless you have a bunch of buddies, because you can have fun. It's just not a very good Zelda game. And I like to play single player Zelda games.
There's other things to play.
Yeah, like
don't waste your time.
Number 1.
Like number 1 on the list.
Number 1 should come to no surprise to anybody. Ocarina of Time. So Ocarina of Time is widely regarded as one of the best games, if not the best game of all time. It's Nintendo's first outing in 3D gaming. So,
really?
Or no. Not their first 3D game, but it's their first 3D Zelda game.
Of course.
Which is the most important thing next to, of course, 3D Mario. But it's very important for Nintendo and really gaming companies back in the 90s when 3D was becoming a thing that everybody was really starting to pay attention to with the PlayStation and the Nintendo 64, Sega Dreamcast, stuff like that. People needed to make sure that their games that were used to being in 2D, make sure they worked in 3D, which is a lot harder than it sounds, because so many games that were just fine playing in 2D were absolute garbage in 3D, and Bubsy is one of those series that is notorious for not being very good 2D, but being atrocious 3D. And, of course, Sonic the Hedgehog has a lot of games that are just, like, classics 2D, but they're very, very hit and miss 3D. And luckily, we are far more positive with Zelda games because most of them are really good.
Yeah, this one got it right.
Yeah, the first one, got it right, almost got it perfect, but... this is probably as close to a perfect game as I would say.
Yes.
So, in my opinion, of course, there are Zelda games that improved on the systems that this one added, but this one invented Z targeting. It invented targeting an enemy. It's the first one to do that, and that's a thing that every adventure game does now. They all include targeting. So, just a super innovative game. It's going to be important for the rest of video game history, and it probably won't be beaten as people's number 1 game of all time.
Let's hope it is, but I'm fine if it isn't.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. So, that was my top 13 Zelda games. I'm sure everybody else has a different opinion than me, which is awesome. I would love to know about it, so leave us a comment in the comment section down below. Please tell us your favorite Zelda games, and leave the video a like if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't, subscribe for more content like this, and of course comic book content, and we'll see you on the next one.